Welcome to Connecting the Dots. This is an interview show that does interesting, successful people that have overcome challenges and no particular industry, just random people that are interesting. And today, our guest is Vickie Wise. Vickie is a wealth manager based in Dallas with a company called Hilltop Securities. Welcome, Vickie.
Thank you. I'm very glad to be here.
Vickie is a wealth manager. Now, Vickie, we hear this term thrown around a lot, wealth manager.
Right.
Tell us the function of a wealth manager.
Okay. It's probably a lot of different things to different people, but for me and my firm, we look at as a wealth manager as someone that most people think of that as just the investment, somebody that helps people with their investments. And we definitely do that. And some people, that is all we do for them. But we try to bring in the other aspects of their financial lives to make sure that it's all wrapped up as nicely as possible. And when I say that, I'm talking about not just their investments, but their estate planning, retirement planning. Many of our clients are business owners. And so we ask kind of the hard questions, like what if something happens to you tomorrow? And if it's a small business and the wife is the main person in the company, something happens to her, would the company continue to function without her? And is the family reliant on that income? And so forth. And so if that's the case, and there's no apparent person at the firm that can continue to run it for them, and for the family to be able to still live off of that, then we need to make a plan for whether it's through insurance, through key person insurance, buy-sell agreements. There are all kinds of ways to help mitigate some of that type of risk. So we try to ask, again, the hard questions of and things that people don't really like to talk about sometimes, which is if you got hit by a bus tomorrow, what if? And but those are things that people need to, because I've seen some disasters when people weren't prepared and something unexpected happened, and there's a lot that can go wrong. So we try to make sure that all that's kind of wrapped up.
Okay, Vickie, I noticed on your bio, I know you have to be a registered representative to become as what we used to call a stockbroker, but then I noticed a lot of designations, a lot of letters after your name. Matter of fact, you had so many of them it looked like an alphabet, like CFP, CLU. I did understand senior vice president.
Okay,
That's
good.
not the only thing that I understood.
Okay, good.
So break these other two down for us.
Okay. Okay. So the CFP stands for Certified Financial Planner.
Okay.
And what that means is that it's a designation that you go back to school.
Okay.
I actually did mine at SMU.
In Dallas.
Yes. And it's almost a 2-year program, 7 semesters. And you spend 1 semester on each of kind of the 5 disciplines that go along with the designation: estate planning, tax planning, retirement planning, risk management, and investments. And so it's a deep dive into each of those pieces of financial planning. But at the end of it, at the end of the 2 years, then you've got to go sit for a board exam. And it is truly the toughest test I've ever taken in my life. When I took it, it was 10 hours. It was 4 hours on a Friday afternoon. Then you went back on Saturday morning for 3 hours, 1 hour break, and then 3 more hours. So I don't think it's quite that long now. But needless to say, I was thrilled when I got the letter that said I had passed the first time.
Okay. Now wait, let me interrupt you just a minute.
Okay.
I understand that after that, they ask you back to teach that class.
They did. So
Okay.
SMU, I was the first student that had gone through their program and that passed the exams that they asked to come back and teach.
Okay.
So I did that for 2 semesters, and I loved it.
Okay.
It was very time consuming. I had no idea how much work went into. Have a whole new appreciation for professors and instructors in college, because it takes a lot of work, a lot of time. But I enjoyed it, and one day when I have more time, I would like to go back and do some more teaching.
Okay.
So I just did it for a couple semesters. It was a lot of fun.
Okay.
But the other part of the CFP is that once you even pass the board exam, you have to recertify every year. There's a certain amount of continuing education you have to do every 2 years, and you have to recertify every year to follow certain ethical and moral standards that I'm a fiduciary in meaning that I always have to, as a CFP, I have to always put my clients' interests before my own, which I did anyway, but it's actually part of the creed of the CFP world. So I think for high net worth people, high net worth families, I didn't really know how much the CFP designation would help me, but I realized pretty quickly that it makes a big difference with high net worth people.
Okay. And CLU?
CLU stands for Chartered Life Underwriter. And so that's kind of a designation that says you have a certain expertise in insurance. I would not hold myself out as an expert in insurance. I certainly know enough about it, and we use insurance often in our clients' lives for, again, estate planning, for business succession planning, and so forth. So that seemed like a normal or rational thing to go ahead and get after I finished the CFP.
Now, Vickie, go back to tell us a little bit about your background. Did you know that this is a path that you wanted to go down when you were in school?
No, heavens no. No, this all happened, I'm going to call it, you look back and you go, well, that was God's hands all over that, because it was not a plan that I had. But I had actually started off wanting to be an accountant. And so I moved to Tulsa, Oklahoma after high school. I grew up in Northwest Arkansas and moved to Tulsa and was working full-time, putting myself through school part-time and at a junior college. And I got an associate's degree in accounting, which is a 2-year degree. And it took about 5 seconds to figure out that wasn't going to do a whole lot for my career path. So I immediately went back and started taking some of the core courses that you don't take for the associate degree, knowing I was going to go for my 4-year degree. Did as much as I could there and decided to move back to Northwest Arkansas and went to University of Arkansas, Woo Pig Suey. And I knew by then I did not want to be an accountant either. So I switched to financial management and really, again, not with any particular job in mind. But what happened, so the very first semester, I had gone to school part-time for so long that when I moved back there, I'm like, I'm not going to work. I'm just going to go to school full-time and get this done. I was really tired of stringing it out. So we moved back in the spring. And so that summer, I took 12 hours. The fall, I took 21 hours.
Good gracious.
The next spring, I took 19 hours. And then the next summer, I took 12 hours. I got it done, right?
Okay.
I got it done quickly. But the very first, that fall semester, one of my first classes was with a professor named Dr. Bob Kennedy. And I don't know anything about him. We all go to the class first day. And Dr. Kennedy had been a professor there for a long, long time. And he had a form that he had all of his students fill out on the first day that talked about, he asked your GPA, what do you want to do when you get out, where do you want to be? And I did pretty well in school. So I, fill all that out. I really didn't know what I wanted to do. I wanted to be in Northwest Arkansas because that's where all my family was. And second day of class, he collects all the forms. At the second day of class, he asks, who's Vickie Wise? I raised my hand. He said, I'd like to talk to you after class. So I go up.
I've had that happen to me a lot of times.
Yeah?
But it was not in the realm that what you say, okay.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, this was probably a little more positive experience than you had.
It was, okay.
But he asked me, he said, why did you not apply for my portfolio management class? And I said, I'm not sure what you're talking about. And he said, why didn't you apply to be in my portfolio management class? And I said, I don't know what you're talking about. Well, someone years ago had donated a significant amount of money to the university, and they had a very specific group of students, I should say, in this class that you actually managed a portfolio of stocks. I mean, it was a real live portfolio of money that you're managing. And it was a very elite class. There were only like 14 students, as I recall, give or take a few, allowed into the class. And they would either choose students, you had to be invited into the class by the finance professors, or you applied for the class and was accepted by the finance professors. And they generally chose students from the spring semester. I wasn't there in the spring, so they didn't know about me to invite me into it. I moved there in the summer, so I didn't know anything about it to even apply. So I'd kind of fallen through the cracks. Apparently I was the type of student they normally would have invited into that class. But so I missed out on that, but it worked out beautifully for me because Dr. Kennedy and I became very good friends, and we stayed in touch the whole time I was finishing school. So fast forward to the next spring, I'm about to finish up that semester, and he called me one day and he says, "What are you doing next Tuesday?" And I said, "Nothing." And he goes, "Well, I've set up an interview for you." And Dr. Kennedy had some great contacts on Wall Street. If he saw that you worked really hard and tried hard, he would help you find jobs when you got out. So I go to this job interview, and it's Alice Walton, which is
the Walmart.
Yes, Sam
family.
Walton's daughter. And unbeknownst to me, she and Dr. Kennedy were good friends. Alice at the time was running the discount brokerage operation for the Walton banks. And back then there were some laws and regulations around a brokerage that was affiliated with a bank. There were a lot of regulations about what you could and couldn't do. And Alice doesn't like people telling her what she can and can't do. So she had decided she was going to go down the street and open her own investment banking firm separate from the bank so that she didn't have to deal with those regulations. And she had told Dr. Kennedy, send me some of your best and brightest students. And so I go interview with her. She hired me that day.
Okay.
I actually interned with her the summer that she was filing all the SEC and NESD paperwork to form this company.
And how long were you there?
8.5 years, actually.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So I was the fourth person she hired. We ended up with, there was a sports management firm, there was an asset management firm, we had an accounts receivable firm that would finance Walmart receivables. Obviously, there was a connection there. So it was an incredible education for a kid like me, fresh out of school, to get to watch all these things being built and the way that all the different financial functions that were happening there. I actually started off as an investment banker in municipal finance, where we'd structure and create new municipal bond deals to take to market, and then we'd turn it over to our salespeople to sell. And I did that for 4.5 years, and we're just working crazy hours, nights, holidays, weekends. And when we would get a deal ready to go to market, and we turn over to the salespeople, and they would make more money in 1 month than I'd make all year. And I would walk through the sales floor, and they're in there with their feet on the desk, and they're telling jokes, and they're laughing and talking, and I'm like, I want to go do that.
Okay.
Not knowing how hard that was.
Okay.
It looked easy. It is not. And thankfully, I was ignorant enough to think that it wasn't hard. So I asked to move from the investment banking side over to the sales side. And they had never had anybody that didn't have a book of business. So I literally was just cold calling Texas banks and trust departments. And here I am almost 30 plus years later, still in the business. But it was a great experience, there were great people there. And that's how I kind of ended up
now,
in this
Vickie,
business.
now, how do you market yourself? How do people know about you? How do you...
I'm blessed in that, I spent my early days, and I think everybody does in this industry, cold calling, which is not fun. But I'm blessed that I now, I've for quite a few years have had a full book of business, and these days it's more referrals from current clients.
So referrals.
Yeah, which is wonderful. That's the best. That's the best compliment you can get.
Yeah. Well, obviously, now don't be modest. Obviously, you're one of the best in the business, and I'm sure it's not all peaches and cream, because we've had some very volatile markets. Do you have to do a lot of comforting in these very volatile markets when things get turned upside down?
Yes, of course, and but not as much as you would think. Most of my clients have been with me long enough that we've been through these cycles together, and they generally are just cycles, right? And so if you've got the fortitude to hang through the tough times, you're generally going to get rewarded on the other side. The toughest clients I have are the new ones.
Okay.
Or they have new wealth, whether it's they sold a business or they inherited a lot of money, or got a couple of lottery winners, truly, that those are the toughest ones, because you would think they would be easier. They're afraid.
Yeah, that would be, I would think, a very challenging part of your function. But let's turn this around. I don't know how to phrase this exactly. I'm going to invent a new word. Okay. Funnest.
Okay.
Okay. They didn't have a lot of that down in Arkansas, did they? Okay. What's the funnest part of your job?
Oh, the people. I love people, and I love working with people. So, you know, in getting to walk through, I mean, some of it's the funnest parts are when, you know, somebody's just had a big liquidity event. Again, maybe they sold a business that they, you know, spent 30 years building, and they've now hit the payday and sold their company, and they've made a lot of money. But I got to tell you that some of the most rewarding relationships I have are with widows.
Okay.
Ladies that their husbands have passed, and especially from one of the old, you know, the older generations, that, you know, it was typically the male role back in the day to handle all the financial stuff, and when the husband passes, you know, the wife they're scared.
Okay.
They don't know what they have. They don't know, are they going to be able to live? Are they going to, they don't know.
Okay.
And, you know, they're often in my office crying, and I cry with them
Okay.
before it's over. But to walk through that with them and help them to get to a place where they know they're okay.
Okay.
Is very rewarding.
Good.
And same thing with some divorced.
Yeah.
You know, I've worked with some divorcees who they're scared.
Yeah.
And walking through that, I try to put myself in their place, and I educate as much as I can, and try to help them understand what we're doing and why we're doing it. Those are not the easiest cases, but those are probably the more fun ones for me, because I feel like I've definitely made a difference.
So I like your terminology, rewarding. That's better than funnest, isn't it? Okay.
Same thing.
Okay. Now, you briefly mentioned, how long have you been in the business?
A little over 30 years.
30 years. Yeah, you've got a lot of job security there. Okay.
Right.
All right, Vickie, I always like to ask this question. Doesn't have anything to do with you, doesn't have anything to do with your industry.
Okay.
What's your 3 favorite words?
God.
Okay.
That's first. Family.
Okay.
Family second. And love.
Wow. That speaks a lot about you.
Yeah.
Thank you for being our guest today.
Thank you. Very
Okay.
fun. Thank you for having me here.